but you're going to have to go into the copy room, and they're on the table. They say Chapter 9. Bring that whole stack if you would. Sorry about that. Had to make copies the other day. All right, where did we get to? A demographically diverse world. Does that look about right? Okay. All right, so this should finish up Chapter 9 today. And yesterday we were talking about impacts on land, urbanization, arable land. What does arable mean again? Farmable land. And we said that the UN identifies, out of the developing countries, they identify the least developed countries. And I just put a few of these up here: Myanmar, Nepal, Niger, Guinea, Bhutan, Malawi, Somalia, Afghanistan. If you've heard those in the news before, you're usually hearing about them because they have some sort of either economic crisis or a health crisis, and that's because they are so poor. Those are those nations that are living on less than $1 to $2 a day that we saw when we watched the Miniature Earth video. And so they are in the greatest danger of having development and economic issues. And they're the first that receive foreign aid from developed countries. So moving on to this graph here, we note that the world's population is now growing most rapidly in Asia. If you'll look at the graph, yellow is Asia, green is Africa, purple is Latin America, blue is Europe, and red is North America. And so most of the population growth that we're experiencing right now is in Asia, and second most in Africa. If you look here, the United States is actually not responsible for very much of it at all. And we talked about why we were even still growing was because of immigration. And so these areas right here are where we need to focus on educating women, making sure that women have rights to education and access to employment. Because if you finish the lab, which I hope you did, hope you've turned that in, then one of the stations was over what could we do to ethically help people decide to have less children. And the number one thing that they recommended that we've seen in science and in history is to educate women. And it even asked you to come up with another alternative. So I'm interested to read what your alternatives were. I think it was in that problem solving station. So maybe there's some good ideas lurking out there. Today, less developed countries face the likelihood that continued population growth will prevent them from imitating the development of the world's economic leaders. Countries such as China, Thailand, and India have created campaigns to reduce fertility rates of their citizens, which we have talked about at length. Some of those have been what I would call ethical, and some have not. But, excuse me, fixing to sneeze. These campaigns include public advertising, family planning programs, economic incentives, and legal punishments. And so we've gone in depth as to what different countries have done. Thailand and India did not go nearly as far as China did. They did have some legal punishments at one point and public advertising, but there was no, kidnapping and forced population reduction like China had. In 1994, the UN, or the United Nations, held the International Conference on Population and Development, called the ICPD. And they came together to kind of come up with ideas to help these developing countries slow their population growth so they could kind of get some development going before they exhaust all their resources. And many countries within the UN favored stabilizing through investment and development, especially through improvement in women's status. And you've probably seen some celebrities that have gone in and tried to develop schools for women in particular. I think Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie did that. I think Oprah did that. And so some private individuals have tried to do that, but as of right now, we still haven't met kind of the goal that they set for getting education to women in least developed countries. These were the goals for 2015, and we looked these stats up this morning to see if we had achieved those. Provide universal access to a full range of safe and reliable planning, family planning methods and reproductive health services. That has not been reached. That goal has not been reached. Reduce infant mortality rates to below 35 infant deaths per 1,000 live births, and mortality rates of children under 5 years below 45 deaths per 1,000 live births. We have reached that goal. Okay, so they were able to accomplish this. Close the gap in maternal mortality. That means moms that die during childbirth between developing and developed countries, and achieve a maternal mortality rate below 60 per 100,000 live births. We did achieve that. Increase life expectancy at birth of more than 75 years in countries with the highest mortality, and increase life expectancy at birth to more than 70 years. We're at 67 years, so almost there. And to achieve universal access to completion of primary education, ensuring the widest and earliest possible access by girls and women to secondary and higher levels of education. This has not been achieved. And I think it's strange that this one hasn't been achieved. To me, the practicality of education seems a lot easier to do than to close the gap in mortality over here, because, you know, this is expensive right here. This is having doctors go over and educate people and work in clinics and nurses and things like that. All of those people make a lot of money. This right here is teachers. And you would think that that would be the cheaper thing to do, the easier thing to do. But for some reason, they have not done that. So with these goals, worldwide fertility rates are dropping as shown below. This is the entire world population right here. So it's declining. This was 2000 to 2010. Least developed regions were also declining, even though they were initially much higher. Their most severe developed regions are also declining, but not as a greater rate. And then even the developed countries are still declining in population. So from what we can see, it does not look like we're going to hit that 13 billion kind of mark that everybody projected that we would. Carrying capacity is about 12 billion people. And so that's when everybody would have just enough resources to sustain life and be, you know, somewhat comfortable. Above 12 billion right now at our technological advancement stages and our ability to feed people, it would be uncomfortable. So we're at 7.8 billion. They think that this is going to level off by 2050 at about 9 billion. And so remember that statistic I told you yesterday, that throughout all of human history, there's only been 13 billion people ever born. And right now, 7.8 billion of us are alive at this moment in time. And so over half the world's people are alive that have ever been alive right now. It's weird to think of it like that. Our population was so low prior to this. But fertility rates have declined in both more developed and less developed regions. They're continuing to decline. Demographers predict that the world trend will continue, and it will slow, being slower this century than in last century, and eventually stop. So we'll get to that stable position where, you know, we kind of have really long lives, but not that many people are being born. That's kind of what the goal is to have a long life and slow the number of people being born. You look at this graph, we're currently at medium rate, which is the red line. If we were at low, it would be the yellow line, and high it would be purple. But demographers predict that by 2050, we should hit about 9 billion and stay there for quite a while. So I will be 76. You all will be 46, give or take. Y'all be my age and I'll be my mom's age. That's weird. So hopefully I'll still be around. Come find me. Come find me in the old folks' home. Say, hey, Miss Benton, look at me. I turned out okay. All right, so let's do a review real quick before we take the quiz. What is demography? Somebody tell me. Of human populations. Very good. What is age structure? I guess I'm going to have to start calling on people, huh? Tony, what's age structure? Look at your notes. It's weird. I make you take these notes because the answers to the quizzes are in them. Crazy. Somebody help him. Who's got it? Bethany. Yep. Usually graphed in a double-sided bar graph that creates a what? Pyramid. Number 3, what is survivorship? Okay, the number of individuals that are in a population expected to survive. And usually that means expected to survive until they're reproductive, so at least 15. Okay. Number 4, what are the 3 types of survivorship curves? What?
Just kidding.
We called them 1, 2, 3, but they had other names. This is why 5th period is beating y'all in tests almost. Come on, people. What you got?
Is one of them not good?
Mm-mm. Survivorship curves are on page.
Oh, wait.
Find it.
First state. With the first state? No.
Page 220.
Oh, it's the curve that shows the population where most individuals live in advance.
Yeah, that's what it is. It asks for the 3 types.
Type 1, type 2, type 3.
Okay. What is type 1?
I don't know.
Developed countries.
Oh.
What's type 2? Transitional. Type 3. Developing. Okay. Tisk tisk. Might want to write that in your notes. Go back over that. Number 4, what are the 3 types of, Number 5, what is fertility rate? Per what? 1,000 women of childbearing age. So number of births per year per 1,000 women of childbearing age. What's the difference between emigration and immigration? Jason?
Immigration is moving into a country and immigration is moving out.
I have to call it emigration so you can hear the difference. E for exit, I for in. Okay. Number 7, what are the 4 stages of demographic transition? Bethany? You don't have to describe them, just say what they are. No, pre-industrial. What's the next one? Nope, there's one in between. Transitional, then industrial, then post-industrial. Okay? Y'all are a little rusty on those too. You need to know them. What is arable land? Farmable land. Good. What's infrastructure? Basic, what'd you say, facilities? Yeah, that's a good synopsis. Roads, bridges, hospitals, transportation, clean water. What is urbanization?
An increase in the ratio or density of people living in urban areas.
Okay. It's an increase in the number of people, usually turning it into a city. So city means urban. When you see urban, think city. Keith Urban, Keith City. That's what I think. What type of diseases can you get from unsafe drinking water? Cholera. What else? Dysentery. What else? What'd you say? Typhoid. Yes. Anything else?
Getting one?
Guinea worm, yeah. I was looking on this life straw package, and one of the things that it protects you from, it gives a list here. It says Escherichia coli, which is E. coli, that's like in cow poop, Campylobacteria, Vibrio cholera, Pseudomonas agaricella, Shigella, Salmonella, and Giardia, parenthesis, beaver fever. Not beaver fever, but beaver fever. Evidently, beavers transmit Giardia. I did not know that. But I guess if you got a beaver swimming around in the water and they poop in the water, then you can get Giardia. I just thought it was something that was in water, but evidently it's transmitted by beavers. Uh-huh.
Does it taste the same, or does it still have like the same?
The sugar is still in it.
Oh, no, like, well, if you like drink like really gross water, would it taste gross?
If it's dissolved in it, because I can still taste sugar. So, yeah. So if you drank your pee, it still tastes salty. So anything that is a solute, so anything that water can dissolve is going to still go through because the micron filter is not that small. Okay. So yeah, still tastes like sugar. All right. So you are ready to take the quiz. Go to chapter 9.2 quiz. And complete that. You have plenty of time. You can use your book and your notes. Read carefully. Make sure you understand the question.